repeat with me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Commissioner Bonilla,
Present.
Commissioner Enriquez, Commissioner Mariles,
Here.
Commissioner Manna.
Present.
Ishan Bada's not here today, and we're waiting on Commissioner Okello.
Thank you. Do we have public comment?
Yes, we will. They're not here yet.
Thank you. And do you know for which item, or will they?
It's Ramona, our natural resources manager, is going to be introducing 2 new staff members.
Okay, perfect. Just let me know. Okay, can we first start with the review and approval of the minutes from February 1st meeting?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Have a Second. Any discussion on them? All right, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, moving to presentation 4.1, budget update. Director?
Great. It looks like we have our 2 new employees. Would it be okay if we introduce them now? Is that okay?
That would be wonderful.
Great. So I'm going to turn it over to our natural resource manager, Ramona, who is going to talk about our 2 new wonderful employees who are with us here today.
Forgive my tardiness. Hello, commissioners and commission. I'd like to introduce Hannah Ormshaw and Dan Krug. Why don't you guys take a step up and stand in front and say hello. So Hannah is our new natural resource specialist 2. She returns to the Parks Department after she spent a year with us, or a little more than a year with us, as an SCA GIS intern, Student Conservation Corps intern. She worked with us on GIS development and an all-around biologist. We put her on a lot of biological projects. And she's returned to us recently after a year or more with the Alameda Resource Conservation District, Alameda County. And so she's returned to us with a lot more experience in amphibian work and grassland work and managing contracts and the like. So we are thrilled to welcome Hannah back. And she's got a background also in restoration and hydrology with a focus on some wetland work. And then Dan Krug comes to us from Illinois, and he's our new county arborist. We share him 2 days a week with the county planning department. He's got 12 years of professional arborist experience working with a very large tree firm out there, and he has already been an incredible boon to the department in terms of all of the tree inspections that he's been doing and some of the educational pieces he's been working with in the individual districts. I'll turn it over if they want to add any additional work or background, but I almost forgot. Dan has a background in natural resources as well as an undergrad. So we're thrilled to have them both.
Wow. Did either of you want to say anything? Sorry, don't want to put you on the spot, but if you do, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, again, I'm Dan Krug. I have really enjoyed my time so far working for the parks. It's a blessing to be able to see the variety of plant material and the ecosystems from bayside to coastside, north-south. It's really quite amazing. And so every day it's really wonderful. I can't say enough and can't be happier to be working for the county.
Great, thank you. We're glad to have you. And Hannah?
Hi, I'm happy to be back with the Parks Department. It's been great for the work that I've been able to do. And right now, with my projects currently, I'm really excited to be spending a lot of my time doing the butterfly monitoring work at San Bruno Mountain, which is getting me out in the field really often and spending a lot of time out in the parks. So, it's just been a really great opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you, and thank you for coming back.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission. The big picture on this budget and projects update, which are number 5.1 and 5.2 on your budget, I'm going to kind of combine them. But every year about this time, we look at our budgets and we prepare for the next fiscal year. The fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30th. And we're on a 2-year budget cycle. So we kind of do our budget for 2 years and we're in the middle of a 2-year cycle. And then next April, we'll have an even more robust discussion because we'll be starting and working through our planning for the next 2-year cycle, which will be a big deal. So I like to give folks the 30,000 foot view of our budget, where we're at, what are some of the highlights, and then what we're looking at for the next fiscal year. So I always like to put our mission statement. This is the big picture of why we're doing this, and that's through stewardship. San Mateo County Parks preserves our county's natural and cultural treasures and provides safe, accessible parks, recreation, and learning opportunities to enhance the community's quality of life. So I wanted to give kind of a sense of what we do in the budget, so you have this money, what do you do with it? Well, we maintain and manage 22 sites, more than 17,000 acres, 200 miles of trail. This last bullet, I think is important and often overlooked, that we manage 138 buildings, right? 61 restrooms. That's a lot of restrooms spread throughout the county. And it's quite a workload that it adds to our organization. And then for this upcoming fiscal year, what are some of the big things we're looking at? We're adding Tunitas Creek Beach to the system. This is a really big deal for us. Next Tuesday, we're going to the Board of Supervisors and submitting our staffing requests for the new park. And that's an exciting opportunity for us to get the resources we need to jump in and start managing that site. One thing that you see is that we, in this next fiscal year as well, we have a decent amount of funds for capital improvements and deferred maintenance projects. We'll go into them a little bit more during the project discussion. And then another thing that's been on our horizon in terms of this next fiscal year is there's a lot of potential acquisitions out there. And I noticed like on your commission's work plan, there's a whole segment on looking at potential acquisitions. It'll be something that we will be talking about more as we go forward. Just a quick map to show you, I think the power of this map is to show you how widespread our parks are, and how some of them are urban interface, some of them are really wildlands, some of them are historic. We have such a breadth of sites that it really makes for an interesting and fascinating system. And I think that's one of the reasons that we all like working here so much. So kind of give you a sense of the personnel situation for our department. We have 71 budgeted positions, 66 of those are filled. And when you look at our organization, most of our folks are rangers, and we're fine with that. Those are folks that are on the ground, managing the parks day to day, making sure visitors are safe, and making sure all the amenities are right. We also rely on a lot of agile positions, folks like park aides and others who fill in and make sure that we can get, especially during our busy season like summer, get all the parks cleaned and ready for use. And one thing that on the bottom bullet that I forgot to put into the staff report, but was to recognize the power and the importance of our volunteers. Last year we had over 40,000 hours of volunteer service. And if you equated that to full-time equivalent folks, that would be over 20 employees. We rely heavily on our volunteers, such as Faye in the audience today, one of our volunteers, to help us achieve our mission. And it's a huge part of what we do. So what are we looking at for this next fiscal year? As we talked about, we're looking at 2 new park rangers, 2 park aides, and 1 capital project manager, which is a big deal for us. We'll talk a little bit more about that during the project discussion, and that's related to Tunitas. And then for the next 2-year cycle, we'll be coming back and talking to you next year. But one of the visions we have is to enhance our interpretation, outreach, and communications from the department, which I think matches with some of what the commission has said relating to get more people in the parks and make sure our message is being heard in the community. Here's our organization chart, and if you see the bottom layer is mostly the rangers out in the field in the different districts. We have a very slim administrative staff, and most of our folks are rangers, which is great because they're the ones doing the hard work of maintaining the parks and working with our visitors. So let's talk a little bit about our budget. This year we had a big budget. It's $41 million. Where does that money come from? Show you the pie chart that's in your packet in a second. But we get about 12 of that from the general fund. A lot of Measure K funds that we're getting. A lot of that's rollover. Last year our budget was about 30 million, and so we have a lot of rollover projects that we are sprinting as quickly as possible to finish and get performed for the community. That's really what it says in this 18-19 budget. We're dashing to complete the capital improvements and deferred maintenance. We're adding Tunias Creek Beach. This next item I think is important for the commission. We're going to be starting a fee study. We've kicked off the contract, and we'll be asking the commissioners to see this item, and then we're also creating an advisory group, which we can talk about under your work plan. There was a couple folks that were assigned under the work plan to deal with fees, and so we want to revisit that and make sure we have the right commissioners to help advise us on that advisory group. And of course, the fees will come back to the larger commission for review and approval. And as I mentioned last meeting, there is also a request for us to develop some planning in case of a recession or a pullback in the economy. So I'm working with Rolando and our finance folks to put together some planning for that. So here's the pie chart. Here's where the money comes in. And this really isn't that different than, a checkbook at your house, right? Where do you get money for your house? Well, in our case, we get, some funds from our camping and picnics, our marina, and our entry fees. Those are each about $1 million a year, which is great revenue. And as you can see, that big blue on the right-hand side of your screen, that's 39% is Measure K funding, which is a large amount of rollover projects and services and things that we are desperately trying to fix up and maintain our parks with. Where does the money go? I think one of the important things to see in this pie chart is the salaries. Only 27% of our budget is going to salaries this fiscal year. And that means we're doing a lot of work with a little staff. And it's a representation of what we've been able to accomplish of trying to move through these large capital projects, these Measure K projects, and all the other things we're doing with a small staff. All right, so I wanted to show this slide, and this isn't in your packet, but I wanted to show it, kind of give you a sense of where we're at with our maintaining our parks and our facilities and our trails. Basically, when you look at a facility or something you're going to build, only about 20 to 30% of those costs are in the actual designing and building that. The long-term maintenance costs and recapitalization, rebuilding that item is really where the costs come in. And we are really, with most of our parks and facilities, in the recapitalization point. That's really what you're seeing in those budget numbers, is that we're going back and we're fixing the things that were put in 40, 50 years ago. One of the best examples is at Memorial Park, the water and wastewater systems. They're 50 years old and they're leaking all over the place. And we have some major projects to go in there and fix them. A lot of these items are unglamorous, right? A lot of these are kind of the infrastructure work in a park that needs to be done, but is not necessarily something that looks great on the front of a newspaper. So there is a difference between kind of new construction and then what we're calling recapitalization, or addressing deferred maintenance is another way to deal with it. So I wanted to highlight a few of the projects that go onto either side of that. So new construction, we're on April 24th, the Sanchez Adobe goes to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So it's very exciting, and that's new construction of a new interpretive center that's going to really help folks understand California history. And I know that the commission has seen that before. An item that you saw recently at a meeting, Complete the Gap. An item that's going to be coming to you very soon, Flood Park and Coyote Point, are all examples of kind of new construction. Then we have our examples of things that we're fixing. And a lot of those items on that big list that I included in your staff report are areas where we're recapitalizing or addressing deferred maintenance in our parks. And this is the big list. I showed you earlier that we have the ability, if approved on Tuesday, to hire a new capital projects manager. It's going to be huge for our department. This is going to be a person who's going to help us address this list and really move forward on helping us get these projects done. Currently, we rely a lot on other departments or other consultants and stuff. This will be someone in-house who's kind of bird dogging these projects and making sure that they move forward. So in terms of the budget, and this is something I wanted to highlight to the commission, in terms of the budget in this next fiscal year, what are you guys going to be seeing related to projects? I wanted to make sure you're aware that in June, Flood Park, the EIR, which is the Environmental Impact Report, is going to be coming to this body, and we're going to be asking for your approval of that document. So if there are questions about Flood Park or you want to talk more about it, please set up some time with us. We'd love to walk you through it. We're currently addressing all the comments on the document, but we will be bringing that back to the commission for a vote in June. And subsequent to that, the Quarry Park Master Plan, which was another item on your list, not necessarily a capital project, but a planning project, that's going to come in August. And we're also going to be asking the commission to give us approval with that. And then I talked about the Sanchez Adobe. So in summary, we have a healthy budget, but there are possible challenges out there. As we indicated, we are planning for potential issues with the economy, but right now we have funds and we are trying to address those deferred maintenance issues, those park projects that need to get done. We're adding resources for Chinitas Creek Beach. We're starting the process to right-size the fees with the commission's help. What I mean by continue the discussion is, I want to, over time, bring this presentation back to you every April, and we can then start looking at trends over time and see how we're doing in terms of revenue, see how we're doing in terms of expenditures over time. I think it gives you a good picture of where we're headed. And then looking towards the future, increasing community awareness, visitation, and recognition is an important piece. This last slide kind of shows you what goes on in terms of our what I think is important related to county parks. I have a lot of friends who are in business, and they always say, well, I have to meet my quarterly report, and I have to have profits every quarter. And they say, well, how do you recognize success? How do you measure success in parks? And from my perspective, it's really about community adoption. Community adoption means, how does every San Mateo County resident know about our park system? Do they care about our park system? Have they been touched by it? Have they had a positive experience? Have their kids gone to Sanchez Adobe? Have they hiked in one of our parks? Have they had a picnic at Coyote Point? Those sorts of experiences create community adoption, which is huge. And so how do we engender community adoption? Well, we got to have some financial flexibility. You got to have some money to do stuff. And that's really one of the reasons I present this budget to you guys, is to show you that we're trying to be prudent and trying to and make sure that we have the resources to take advantage of situations as they arise to improve the department, to improve our outreach, to improve our growth. And that's also about smart growth. You know, like as I indicated, there's a lot of agencies that want to give us properties. We need to be very smart about that, about what we take on, how far that stretches the department, and what is the right properties that are going to really enhance our ability to create community adoption. Customer service is a huge deal for us. You know, we have a wonderful Ranger Corps, and they talk to folks, and those experiences mean a lot. And the interpretive programs that we have started have been a huge asset, as well as such things as the volunteer for natural, you know, we have a lot of volunteers who pull weeds for our natural resources department and do different tasks. And that's a huge part of creating folks that care about these spaces. And then, of course, our strong partner organizations. We have great friends groups. We rely on the commission as a partner, the board of supervisors as a partner, and our foundation is also a very important partner going forward. So I just kind of want to give you a sense of some of the vision of creating and where we're headed in terms of what I see as success for our department. And that is my presentation.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, through the chair.
Sure.
Just a couple of points of clarification and elaboration, and certainly some suggestions. You know, in the last couple of meetings, we've talked about the park in lieu fees that we sort of inherited from the county planning department. So I'd like to know where that is in the charts, in the revenue pie chart, and how much of it is there. I know there's a large miscellaneous. There's a section called miscellaneous. You know, the color. Perhaps I'm getting blind with my age here, but you know, the pie chart is really good. But you know, I'm confused with the color. So having the actual spreadsheet would be helpful to me. Okay. Or even having the percentages listed where you have measure AK, say what percentage that is. I think that would be helpful for me.
Okay.
And so those are my questions insofar as the budget is concerned. In terms of you know, other parts of the presentation, the org chart I think is impressive to me, and it's I'm glad you're providing us with that information. That the park ranger, the people that are actually the line workers, they form the majority, you know, the majority of the workforce in the department. But this is just a suggestion and a concern that I may have, is that, you know, having more than 3 people reporting to you is difficult. I think it at least from what I've learned, you know, and so are there any possibilities at all of revisiting the structure, you know, so you have it such that, you know, you only have at least 3 people that report to you, you know. And I can't imagine what the park superintendent is going through, because when you look at the park superintendent, and everybody at the bottom, you know, seems to be reporting to him directly. And I think that would be difficult for anyone. So creating probably creating some more layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I don't disagree that there is some challenges with the amount, but I think one thing that maybe we can change on the org chart to make that a little clearer is that there's different levels of rangers. There's 2, 3, and 4, and they kind of report up through there. Okay. And we really rely on our ranger 4s in the different districts to kind of be the lead, and they're really the we obviously get involved when there's personnel issues and stuff, right, but they're kind of the day-to-day leads.
I think making that distinction in the org chart would be helpful.
It's a good suggestion. And I can take a crack at, maybe Rolando can help me as well. But let me see what I can. In terms of where the park in Luffy would be, my understanding that would likely be under fund balance because it transfers over every year. So fund balance is like when we have certain fund, and obviously this is everything rolled up. It's a ton of detail under this, but we have balances that roll over every year, and part of that is the park in Luffy. And I would be happy to sit down with you and go through the park in Luffy in more detail. I didn't bring all the information today on Park and Lou, but I'd be happy to sit down with you and go through what projects we funded, what the exact balance is, and what's on the horizon to talk more about it.
I think through the chair, I think I'm interested in that information, but I think the entire commission really needs to be needs to be informed about the whole parking lot, especially given the fact that it's sort of new, that it used to be in the planning department used to have jurisdiction over it over the years, and then at some point a decision was made to transfer it to, the parks department, just giving us an understanding as to what parking Louis is, how those monies are received, what are the restrictions in terms of expenditures, and so on and so forth.
Sorry, excuse me, I suggest that we have that on an upcoming agenda.
That's what I was going to say. I think part of this presentation is to see what the commission is interested in, and then we can fill in items on upcoming agendas based on what you folks are interested in. And that seems to be one we can bring back with a specific presentation.
I appreciate that.
I have one question. On our revenue, we're getting 16 million from Measure A and Measure K, and our capital projects are about 11 million going out. What is the 5 million, or did I just miss that somewhere? Is most of Measure A and K capital?
It's a mix.
Okay.
It's capital and services.
And
so
services.
It's kind of spread in between those two. If I can go to the next one here. It's spread in between those two. The gray one, the capital projects, and the services and supplies.
So if we lost some of the Measure A, K money, it would affect our services as well.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'd like to just, I don't know if the rest of the commission is interested in that, but I'd like to have some information so I can articulate that back to Supervisor Pine.
Okay. About what sort of services are being funded by Measure K?
Yeah, just so I'm well versed in it and I can talk about it. Any other questions for the director?
Same question that on that 11 million that increase that you're talking about.
Yeah,
he's
gonna
get it.
Can you just send that to all of us, I suppose?
Certainly.
Thanks.
The services and supplies, kind of.
Right.
What Measure K portion is that? Gotcha.
Yeah, I had a comment for the future about park fees. And it looks like that section of the pie chart's about $1 million. But when we start talking about that, I think it would be really interesting and important to show the percentage of costs that are associated with that in terms of if there's a manned station or if there's enforcement expenses, and if there are machinery and maintenance capital purchases that are required in order to collect those fees. Because the collecting fees for parking or entry kind of would directly affect what we're trying to do in terms of getting underprivileged people to the parks. So I just want to make sure that we're not spending $3 to get $4 and restricting the use. And I assume that we, at some point, will have some really good data in terms of park use in areas where we are collecting fees, and we could look at that. So I just, the pie chart is a 30,000 foot view, and I really appreciate that because it's nice to see the whole picture. But as we go forward in that particular issue, because I am concerned about getting underprivileged people into the parks, that if we could do a little bit more of a deep dive coming up for a future meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This fee study is really going to dive into that. It's going to give us the costs of these services and then a set of fees. And I put that quote, right size the fees. That doesn't mean everything that goes up. It means if maybe there are some areas where parks, maybe they need to go down. I'm not I'm not against that. I just want to make them the right for the place they are. And we have other parks without any fees.
Right.
So it's taking on all those kind of issues and looking at them.
And also the economy is doing really well right now, and it may be that people have money in their pocket for fees, and so it would be nice at least to talk about maybe flexible fees that we could right size in the future, because if we have to cut back on our budget, it may be that other people are cutting back on their budgets at the same time. So yeah, anyway, I think that's going to be really interesting, and I'd like to get into that a little bit. So yeah, thank you, but thank you for the 30,000-foot view. I think this is really great, and the way you outlined, how many acres we have and how many services and how many buildings, that's incredibly important too, and I like to see that every time you can bring that up.
Thanks.
Because yeah, it's a lot.
I know, I know that our chair has a lot too on our agenda, and our director has to talk about his director's report. But just to piggyback on what Commissioner Marilys was saying, I think part of the process is to increase an awareness of folks coming into our parks. We want that. So potentially, I'm not going to take too much long here, but I think we want to review how well and how accurate the guests that are coming in are flexible in spending. And I think it's another meeting for another direction. And because this is, and thanks for putting this out for us, because the 30,000 is critical. But I think that this entire packet is for us to sort of marinate the ideas, and we can talk about it at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Comment real quick, and this has been an excellent report. There's a chart that you added there that is not a part of our package that is very informative. When you say that 20 to 30% of a facility original cost are just planning, designing, acquisition, and construction, and that most of the expenses are going to be most of the costs are going to be come into play in the next 50 years of the thing. And so in terms of essentially a realistic budget, if we were to project into 50 years in terms of what these are going to cost us, even when you talk about what's the Tunitas Creek Beach that we're just getting ready to sort of work on, are we looking at it in terms of those 30% just to get it done? And then for the next 50 years, this is presumably what we're going to spending annually. So I think the board needs to know that. The Board of Supervisors need to know that, so that we don't get into the situation where at some point, like it happened in the past, the Parks Department just got liquidated. And it had to be brought back, and so we that information really does need to be presented on a constant basis, so that we do everybody knows what the needs of the parks departments are.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why that one bubble smart growth.
Right.
Growing, not stretching the department beyond its capabilities, understanding that when we take something on, it's long term.
Right.
It's not that we got to think about those costs of something from 50 years from now when we take it on today.
We don't often sell land.
Okay, I think we can move on to your director's report.
Great. Thank you for the good comments, Commission. We will follow up on those items, including Park and Lou, Measure K, and really bringing you into speed on the fees. Can we pull up the other presentation, please? Great. So I just kind of wanted to run through, and I was going to kind of run through it similar to how the director's report is laid out in your package, and show some photos, nice photos of our different districts, and talk about a few of the things that have been happening since our last meeting. So District 1 is Coyote Point, Crystal Springs Trail, San Andreas Trail. We, you may not know this, but we have RV sites at Coyote Point that are some of the most beautiful sites you could ever have your RV at. We're looking to, and we did some work on them, fixing them up. And some of these pictures relate to some of these items, and some of them are a little different. But we also had a take a hike. There is our great supervisor groom out with our rangers. We had a Valentine's Day craft at Coyote Point. Just a sense of the amount of use at Coyote Point along the Bay Trail is just incredible. And one thing that's been interesting this winter, spring, is we have had just a huge increase in the number of visitors. With the weather we've had this year, the picnicking at Coyote Point on Easter Sunday, we were slammed at Coyote Point, which is great. It's great to have folks in the park, but it was also a challenge for some of our folks. But it was it's been a great winter in terms of visitation. I wanted to point out in your packet at the back is a great article about Folger Stables, some of the history and some of the work that we're doing at the carriage house. I wanted to just highlight that for our commission. And I got to spend some time out at Folger's Stables between now and the last meeting. And it really is a tremendous facility. We're working with the neighbors out there and the concessionaire to ensure those operations are the best they can be for the community. But it really is an amazing operation and is really active and working stables. And Edgewood is in District 2, which includes Edgewood Park, Flood Park, Friendship Park, Huddart Park, and Wonderlick Park. Two of our rangers led a night hike on March 9th for about 30 people at Edgewood. We also had to take a hike out there. Memorial Park is in District 3, which includes Memorial Park, Pescadero Creek Park, and Sam McDonald. A couple of things that happened out there, and as you see under Memorial, we really did some work prepping ourselves for this big water and wastewater project. We did some electrical work out there to get ready for it. We did some cleaning of some of the systems, and we're really hoping to get that wastewater project done. You know, we spend a lot of time fixing leaks, and if we can repair the system as a whole, and that's one of the great things about capital projects, you go in, you repair a complete system, and then you don't have all the ongoing maintenance, and the rangers can do other things like talk to visitors or deal with other issues that come up. So really looking forward to getting that fixed at Memorial. So Fitzgerald is in District 4, which includes Devil's Slide, Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, Murata Surf, Moss Beach Playground, Pillar Point Bluff, Quarry Park, San Pedro Valley, Sanchez Adobe. One other thing in this district that I want to mention, as I said during the presentation, on the 24th, we're bringing the Sanchez Adobe project to the Board of Supervisors for approval. And that will allow us to then purchase the modular interpretive center, which will then be brought to the site later in the year, along with the other site improvements that we're going to do. So at Fitzgerald, we shifted our staffing to assist with the low tides for the seal pupping season, and we've begun safety fencing around the Pillar Point and Bluff. District 5 is our operations and maintenance division, so I don't have any pictures of them, but they're the ones that do all this stuff, along with the other rangers and staff. District 6 is our Coyote Point Marina. I've got to spend a little time really looking into the budget and issues at the marina. I don't have any photos here for you, but more to come on the marina. You know, there's Harbor Master is working really hard out there to improve our operations, to clean up some of the older boats, to ensure that we have a viable and operating marina in the future. And then District 7 is Uniparacera and San Bruno. So we had some trail maintenance at San Bruno. At Uniparacera, we had a nice St. Patrick's Day event. Excuse me. And then this was kind of neat. And this Sunday, there'll be a showing on the Open Road show, which is on NBC or ABC? NBC at 6 o'clock on Sunday. So please set your recorders. It's called Open Roads, and it's a show by Doug McConnell. And he's been around the Bay Area for a long time. And he did a whole segment on San Bruno Mountain. And you can see Ramona there in the photo, talking about our important work to preserve and protect that mountain and the endangered species that reside there. And plus, they took some great photos. So that, once again, that'll be shown this weekend on Sunday. And here's a few of our endangered species. Great. Well, that's my report. I just wanted to highlight some of the things happening in the parks. We have some great interpretive programs which are highlighted in your segment, as well as the natural resource report and the report on our communications.
Are there any questions? Okay, we'll move on to Commissioner's report. Oh,
Just a quick question.
of course you can.
Housing in San Mateo County is a heck of a big problem. And there are a lot of people are moving into their RVs and they are parking right now on city streets. Are we having any problem at all with the parks where people are parking their vehicles in parks and having them stay overnight?
The one, I don't know if you want to take that, Scott? Or I can.
Go ahead.
The one area we have had some issues is across the street from Pillar Point Bluff parking lot over near the Half Moon Bay Airport. There's been a lot of RVs parked across the street over there, and it seems like folks are maybe living in their RVs there. And we've had some challenges with the bathroom being overused and such. So Public Works is looking into restricting overnight parking there. That's the only situation that I know of. Is there any other, you know, Scott?
That's the only current one is across from Pillow Point Bluffs. I believe that the MCC was talking about putting no parking out there and a height limit on the vehicles. We did run into a few challenges at Coyote Point with our RV spots. People were kind of cycling in and staying for additional days, so we had to relook at that to make sure that people weren't coming in and staying too long, and kind of putting some regulation on that. It is occurring though. No issues at this point though. We're monitoring it.
One thing that has happened, we have had some homeless encampments right off 101 near San Bruno on our property at San Bruno Mountain. We're working through that now and trying to go through the proper channels to stop that usage and clean up a pretty extensive camp with a lot of garbage.
Oh, just an additional question through the chair. And so is that something that the park rangers are sort of expected to do, or is it something that the sheriff's department, takes primary responsibility? Who takes the lead on, for instance, homeless encampments on park property?
There is a process for it because there has to be proper notification when you make contact. We also work with the HOT program and living assisting through the county so they can make contact with the people to provide services so they have a place to go. Right. These encampments have become kind of a hazard, so we do not require staff to clean them up. We're actually contracted out due to sharps and possibly fecal matter and stuff that's within the camps, and we have to be very diligent about what we put our staff into. So there is a process to it, and we work through the channels and work in the safest manner that we possibly can to get it done. It's kind of a shame to see people get moved out this way, and we are passionate with them and try to get them as much assistance as we can.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to commissioners' reports, and we're going to start with 8.1, Commissioners' Work Plan. I'm just going to talk about each one or ask you to give a very brief update where you are on your work plan, knowing that we each need to move forward trying to get these done in a timely manner. So the first one, 1.1, was each of us were going to work to increase participation. That was all of us, so we should all be doing that. I'm going to skip over that and go to 1.1.1, form a committee, develop outreach strategies. That was Maida and Sam. Do you guys have a report on that?
We've had one meeting with staff, but we've not followed up on it, so I don't think, and I reported on it last time, so there's nothing, there's nothing new to report there.
Okay, thank you. 1.3, Enriquez, Commissioner Enriquez, it was developing a land acquisition policy to gather them.
Yeah, we are gathering something that we can report you, I think, the next meeting.
Next meeting?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. 1.4 was the Dog Management Committee, which congratulations, Neil, you have completed. 2.1 is myself, 2.1 and 2.11, which is the fee strategy. And I believe that's me, but Neil, you seemed interested in that. Would you like to join me on that?
I would.
Okay.
And
So,
I had one comment about the dog
sure.
management committee.
Sorry, I
too,
should have
in-
let you talk.
In that I was contacted by a community member, kind of wondering what's happening, and I think we have to have the Board of Supervisors adopt a resolution, perhaps coming up, and then we could move forward with.
There's kind of two fronts, if I may, two fronts here. The first is we're kind of developing our pilot. We're looking at a couple parks in relation to the policies that were developed and kind of identifying those as pilot sites. The second piece is we need to change the ordinance to give us a little more flexibility to allow dog use in certain parks. We've been working with our council near it, and she's been great help in terms of we've redlining the ordinance and looking at different ways to give us some flexibility to not only allow dogs, but then to pull it back if we need to, right? If we find ourselves in a problem area, to give us some flexibility. So we're working on that language. So those are the two tracks.
Okay, yeah, just wanted an update, and also if there's some continued involvement by the commission or by community groups, just let us know.
There will be. I'm thinking that we'll probably want to run the ordinance change by the commission, just have a quick look, understand what we're trying to change and how we're trying to change it before it goes to the board.
Right on. Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Neil, for bringing that up. So then, can you add Neil along with myself when you do the advisory studies for the fees? Perfect. Okay, moving on. No one took 3.1 and we've postponed it. We took it, we already did the bylaws. Unless, Maida, you have anything to add to that? I think we were fine on the bylaw change.
Yeah, we completed that.
Yeah. And then 5.1, or 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3, Sam and I are working on getting a meeting with Michelle to further those. And so hopefully next meeting we'll have something to report back. Okay, does anyone have anything in general for the work plan update? I did miss one, I noticed. 1.2 was, Maida was also gonna prepare some type of report evaluating and recommending options for dedicated sources from the county. Is there any report on that?
Where are you at?
Back here, sorry.
Yeah.
Back to 1.2. I looked, somehow, you must have taken it late in the meeting because I have it written down later.
Okay.
Did you not have that one?
Perhaps you need, through the chair, I think we need to, perhaps you and I need to meet. Let's look at the work plan.
On this one?
Yeah, and look at the assignments, because I'm sort of getting confused here with 1.1, 1.2.
Yeah, I'll send out everyone. I had a,
And so I need to recalibrate on this one,
Okay, I'll send everyone a document that I did that I meant to bring today where I had overviewed everyone who agreed to take which ones. And
Right,
so I will send it out, and then if you have questions, we could go ahead and meet on that, you and I.
Right, yeah.
Perfect. And then I do have something about the Portola Trail that you were working on. That wasn't part of the work plan, but I have it written down.
Yeah, that's ongoing. We haven't had a meeting
Okay.
between meetings, but yeah, that's ongoing probably for another year.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted that. Okay, so then moving on, I'm going to close that out. Yes.
Could I say something? And I think
Sure.
this is the only appropriate time to say it.
Okay.
I do apologize for not having been here when the minutes were getting adopted, but I would like to bring the attention of the commission back to the minutes. And the minutes references a meeting that we had with Carla, but it just mentions me. It doesn't mention Commissioner Renee. We jointly met, so he's not mentioned. So if that was not picked up, I think that needs to be corrected. And that's on the second page. Commissioner Kettle had a meeting with Carla Schoof, Parks Community
Number 8.
Programs and Communications Manager. She shared the visitor study. I'm hoping, and Commissioner Keller is hoping to have Commissioner Manet was there. So there were two of us meeting with her, so we need to make sure that is corrected.
Absolutely.
Why don't we vote on that item again then?
Yeah. Okay, so can we, with the changes that the commissioner just brought up, can I have another motion to accept the minutes with those changes to them?
I move we accept the minutes with those changes.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, and thank you for correcting those. Okay, commissioner reports. Commissioner Maida, do you have any other report?
No.
Commissioner Sam?
None at this time.
Thank you. Neil?
Just the dog committee.
Okay, and Commissioner Enriquez?
Yeah, we are announcing that we have a Coyote Point run on I think it's May 18. That was televised to a TFC. TFC is a Filipino channel in the Bay Area, the whole Northern California. It will be going Coyote Point. And after the 5 run, there'll be a food festival. The whole, yeah.
What day is that? May 18?
I will let you know, but I think it will advertise through a television channel. I think not that the major is a Filipino channel, TFC, and it will be on Coyote Point.
That's
There the 5 run. There will be a food festival that will be up to 5 o'clock, and I'll let you know what.
the 18th is a Friday, isn't it?
Is staff aware of this?
I am not, but that doesn't mean that the Rangers haven't been working with the group. I assume that that's probably the case.
Probably at that
Yeah.
level. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably May 18th, but you'll send us an
Which is
email?
a Friday, isn't
I'll
it?
let you know exactly.
May 19th is a
May
Saturday.
19th is a Saturday.
May 9th.
Could it be the 18th? You mentioned the 18th.
But it probably won't be on.
I'm not quite.
Okay, how
Not
about,
exactly. How
how
about,
about if
give
you
us-
just email it to us all?
Email it to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
If I could just clarify for, there's been a couple mentions of emailing. So if a commissioner has information, please email it to Lori,
Yes.
and then she can send a
Send it out.
one-way communication as an information-only communication to the commission. Thank you.
I'll give you the
Thank you for
exact,
that clarification.
Thank you.
date.
Yeah, I was going to offer, we could probably find a flyer or something and send it out to the commission.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Items for future agenda. Does anyone have any? I think we had
I
a
have
couple.
Yeah. So in June, once again, we're bringing the Flood Park EIR, and that's going to be a weighty document. So take a little time to think about Flood Park, or if you want to talk about it, please set up a time. It's going to be a rather large document that we're asking for approval for.
Could I ask a quick Question through the chair. Is the document ready? And can we come and look at it prior to the June meeting? Or when is it gonna be ready for the public? to
It's
look
already
at?
been released. It's
Okay.
already been out there. We've already gotten comments.
Okay.
It's on our website. Is
Okay.
that correct, Carla? Is it?
The draft has been released, and we've gotten comments, and I think we're just finishing up to respond to those comments. So once that process is done, then we'll work to complete and have a final. But a final will be available for the commission to review as well as the public before the June meeting.
So we already have a draft out there, which pretty much lays out where we're going with this project.
Right.
And then we've gotten comments on that. I think it was 129 pages that I read of comments. And then we'll have the final EIR coming out.
So question to legal through the chair. Can the individual commissioners comment on the draft document without violating any provisions of the Brown Act? And or are we
The
obligated?
Brown Act concerns, it's concerned with communications among the commissioners that occur in an offline setting. It wants deliberations of the commissioners to occur in an open public setting. So if individual commissioners have individual comments about a publicly available document that they have reviewed, they can individually decide to transmit those directly to staff, and that's fine.
So what you suggest was, so are the comments being gathered on the website? And are these comments available to everybody that looks at the EIR draft plan, or the comments are directed just to staff? So if I was to write a comment on it, then Neil or any of the commissioners would not see it, but staff would. So they would not react. They would not get an opportunity to react to my comment.
Well, the comments to the draft have already been taken and are closed, and they come in a couple of different ways. They can come in electronically, or they can come in handwritten. And as the process moves forward, those comments that were collected and the responses, whether they be generated through staff and with the help of the consultant, will be part of that final document. So you'll be able to see those.
Thank you.
Yeah, it will include both the comment and the response. And then, as we indicated earlier, in August, we will be bringing the Quarry Park master plan to the commission. So that's another fairly important and great milestone for the department. And I heard that we should also insert Park and Lieu in one of those next two meetings, and also I'd like to bring that ordinance changes in one of the next two meetings.
Sounds good. Any other? All right, hearing any, I would ask for us to motion to adjourn.
Can I have a request first,
Oh,
through
yeah.
the chair, please?
Sure.
Could I request a moment of silence for passing of one of our rangers? Robert Kiliona, who was a ranger for 27 years for us, passed away on March 16th. And I'd appreciate it if we could have a moment of silence for him.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I think
Do that as
that
well.
would be.
Maybe we could do a minute and then do that. Okay.
Amen.
I would like,
One quick, Chairman Bonilla, one quick thing just before we adjourn. I'd like to take this opportunity and commend in District 5, where I'm at, to our first responders who quickly responded to a active shooter at the YouTube building in San Bruno. And you kind of question why am I bringing this up? First, for the responders, but also parks are around those areas too. So an active shooter could have easily went into a park who family members, and it's springtime. So at any point, there's a threat, there's a danger. So a big applaud to our San Mateo County first responders, police and fire and public safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I've had a couple minutes. Can you tell me his name again?
His name was Robert Kiliona.
So I'll ask for a motion to adjourn in honor of Robert Kiliona. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can
Appreciate
I get
that.
first?
I move we adjourn the meeting in the name of Robert Kiliana.
I second that we adjourn the meeting in the name of Robert Kiliona as well.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you in June. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just remember, in June, we'll have a lot of comments because of that EIR. So we'll probably
We may have a lot of people here.
yeah, we'll have a lot of